All right. So today we are going to be taking a deep dive into the book Good to Great
Okay.
by Jim Collins.
Yeah.
And this
Yeah.
book has become
This is.
kind of a business classic, and for good reason.
Yeah.
You're looking to understand what separates the good companies from the truly exceptional ones. And that's exactly what we're going to try to unpack today.
Right.
Um,
Looking forward to it.
One of the things I think is so fascinating about this book
Yeah.
is that Jim Collins and his team, they didn't just go with their gut feeling or, anecdotal evidence.
Right.
They actually did a 5-year research project
Yeah.
focusing on Fortune 500 companies
Yes.
to really try to understand what
That's right.
separated the good from the great.
Absolutely. And I think what's so interesting is the high bar that they set.
Yeah,
It wasn't just any Fortune 500 company.
right.
It was specifically companies with 15 years
Wow.
of good performance,
Okay.
followed by 15 years of exceptional performance relative to the market.
Wow. So not just a flash in the pan, but
Dropping.
sustained excellence.
Exactly.
That's the key.
And what's even more interesting, I think, is they found that some of the usual suspects weren't really the deciding factors.
Yeah.
Like huge executive compensation
Right.
or being a tech pioneer, those kinds
Yeah,
of things.
things you'd think would matter.
Right.
Yeah. And that it was almost like they flipped the script on conventional wisdom.
Yeah.
Initially, they were even advised to downplay the role of the CEO
Interesting.
to avoid falling into the trap of just saying,
Right.
oh, it's all about the leader.
Right.
It's all about leadership,
Yes.
They really wanted to get at the underlying systems and principles at play.
Yeah. Okay, so what did they find?
Well-
What were some of the key takeaways?
They uncovered some surprising and I'd say counterintuitive concepts.
Okay.
Things like level 5 leadership.
The idea of getting the right people on the bus before even figuring out the strategy,
Interesting.
facing brutal facts while maintaining unwavering faith,
Right?
and this thing called the Hedgehog Concept.
All right. So those are some pretty dense concepts.
They are.
We've got a lot to unpack here.
Yes.
So let's start with level 5 leadership.
Okay.
What exactly makes these leaders stand out?
Well, imagine the stereotypical CEO.
Yeah.
Charismatic, larger than life.
Yeah.
Always in the spotlight.
Right.
Level 5 leaders are almost the opposite.
Okay.
They have this unique blend of personal humility
Okay.
and fierce professional will.
So not the rock star CEO that we often see in the headlines.
Not at all.
Okay.
They're ambitious, but their ambition is directed towards the company's success, not their own personal gain or fame.
Okay.
They shy away from public adulation,
Right.
and they are quick to credit others for their successes.
It's almost like they're invisible,
Yeah.
working tirelessly behind the scenes.
Behind the scenes, yeah.
Do we have an example of this kind of leader from the book?
One that stands out is Coleman Mockler,
Okay.
the CEO of Gillette.
Okay.
During a hostile takeover attempt in the 1980s,
Okay.
he could have easily accepted a buyout offer
Right.
that would have made him incredibly wealthy personally.
Sure.
But he chose to fight for the long-term good of the company,
Okay.
even though it meant missing out on personal riches.
So talk about putting the company first.
Yeah,
Did his gamble pay off?
it did.
Okay.
Spectacularly.
Okay.
Gillette not only survived the takeover,
Yeah.
but thrived under his leadership.
Okay.
Their performance in the years that followed completely outshone the returns shareholders would have seen from the buyout.
Wow.
And what makes it even more poignant is that Mockler died of a heart attack
Oh, wow.
just moments after seeing a magazine cover
No way.
celebrating his 16-year struggle.
Oh my gosh.
Tragic,
Yeah.
but also incredibly powerful.
Yeah, well, it really makes you wonder if there's a certain personality type that gravitates toward this kind of leadership. Was this a common theme across all the good to great companies?
Yes, absolutely.
Really?
Every single one had a level 5 leader
Wow.
at the helm during their transformation.
Okay.
It really suggests that it's not about finding a charismatic superstar.
Right.
It's about cultivating a specific leadership style
Right.
that prioritizes the company's well-being above all else.
Okay, so that's level 5 leadership.
Right.
But what about the rest of the team?
Well,
That's where the first two, then what principle comes in, right?
exactly. And this is another area where
Okay.
the research challenges conventional wisdom.
Okay.
Good to great companies focused on getting the right people in the right roles
Mm-hmm.
on the bus, as Collins puts it,
Okay.
before figuring out their strategy.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So it's about building the right team first and then figuring out where to steer the bus.
That's right.
Seems counterintuitive, you
Yeah.
know? Don't most companies develop a strategy and then look for people to execute it?
You would think so.
Yeah.
But the good to great companies flipped the script.
Okay.
They understood that having the right people in place is more important
Interesting.
than having a perfect strategy from the start.
So how do you even know who the right people are?
Yeah,
Especially without a clear strategy in place.
that's a great question.
Yeah.
And it goes deeper than just skills and experience.
Okay.
It's about character traits,
Okay.
innate capabilities,
Mm-hmm.
and a shared commitment to building something great.
Right.
These companies prioritize those qualities over specific skills or experience,
Uh-huh.
believing that the right people would be self-motivated
Okay.
and driven to achieve greatness,
Interesting.
regardless of the specific strategy.
So they believed that once they had the right team in place, the what would become clearer.
That's right. That
Yeah.
what would reveal itself.
Interesting. Do we have any specific examples to back up this approach?
One of the examples they contrast is Eckerd Corporation.
Okay.
The founder, Jack Eckerd, was a visionary leader,
Okay.
brilliant with market insights,
Mm-hmm.
and built this huge drugstore empire.
Okay.
But when he left to pursue a career in politics,
Okay.
the company went into a long decline
Interesting.
because he hadn't focused on building a strong leadership team.
Okay.
In contrast, their direct competitor, Walgreens,
Right.
focused on developing a deep bench of leaders
Okay.
and thrived,
Wow.
even as leadership transitioned
Okay.
over the years.
That's a powerful example of how having the right team can make or break a company.
Yeah, it really is.
It sounds like this approach would also lead to a very different approach to hiring and firing. Did the research touch on that?
Absolutely.
Okay.
They found that good to great companies used layoffs far less
It's
frequently
interesting.
than their comparison company.
Okay.
It goes back to that idea of carefully selecting the right people from the start. You're not constantly churning through employees
Right.
trying to find the perfect fit.
Right.
You invest in your people.
Yeah.
You develop their talents,
Mm-hmm.
and you create an environment where they can thrive.
It's a very different mindset than treating employees as expendable resources.
It is.
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
Yeah.
get the right people on the bus, then figure out where to go.
Mhm.
I like it.
That's it.
But what happens when the road gets bumpy?
Right.
That's where the idea of confronting brutal facts while maintaining unwavering faith comes in, right?
Exactly.
Okay.
Collins calls this the Stockdale Paradox.
Okay.
And it's one of the most powerful concepts in the book.
Yeah, I've heard of Stockdale.
Yeah.
I mean, his story is incredible.
It is.
He endured years of brutal captivity,
Mhm.
facing torture and uncertainty, never knowing if he would make it out alive.
Right.
And what's remarkable is that he never gave up hope.
That's right.
I mean, he always believed he would eventually be freed,
He did.
but at the same time, he refused to sugarcoat his reality.
Mm,
He accepted the brutal facts of his situation
that's right.
and never allowed himself to fall into delusional optimism.
Right.
So it's about balancing realism with hope.
Yeah.
Can you give me an example of how this paradox played out in the good to great companies?
Every single company
Okay.
in the study faced significant adversity on their path to greatness.
Okay.
Some faced near bankruptcy.
Okay.
Others navigated major industry upheaval.
Mm-hmm.
And some even fought off hostile takeovers.
Right.
But their leaders all embraced the Stockdale Paradox.
So they didn't shy away from their problems.
Not at all.
Okay.
They confronted the brutal facts of their situation head on.
Okay.
They conducted honest assessments of their weaknesses and challenges without sugarcoating anything.
So they knew that to find a way forward, they had to face reality.
Exactly.
But they also maintained faith in their ability to overcome those challenges.
That's the paradox, right?
Yeah, it almost sounds like a contradiction.
Yeah, it is.
But it's about looking those realities squarely in the eye, while simultaneously maintaining an unwavering belief in the ultimate outcome.
Right.
Yeah.
Think about a time when you faced a difficult situation, but held on to hope.
Yeah.
How did that impact your actions?
That's a really good question.
Yeah.
I think that sense of hope, that belief in a positive outcome, can be incredibly powerful in helping us persevere through tough times.
Yeah.
I'd love to hear more about how these companies put the Stockdale Paradox into action.
Okay.
Do you have any specific examples?
Yeah, sure. Well, we've already talked about Gillette in their fight against a hostile takeover.
Right.
But they also faced fierce competition in their core business
Okay.
and constant pressure to innovate and stay ahead.
Sure.
Yet, even in the face of these challenges, they never wavered
Okay.
in their belief in their ability to win.
That unwavering faith is really striking.
It is.
But what about companies that weren't facing a takeover or a similar existential threat? How did they apply the Stockdale Paradox?
Nucor, the steel manufacturer, is a great example.
Okay.
They were hit hard by a wave of cheap imported steel
Okay.
that crippled many of their competitors.
Right.
It would have been easy to panic.
Yeah.
But instead, Nucor, under the leadership of Ken Iverson,
Okay.
remained optimistic while also looking at the situation with clear eyes.
So instead of getting stuck in despair,
Yeah,
they looked for solutions.
that's right.
They focused on what they could control.
Exactly.
Okay.
They focused on their efficiency,
Mm-hmm.
their innovative production methods,
Okay.
and their commitment to building a strong, loyal workforce.
And it worked.
And you know what?
Yeah.
It worked.
Okay.
Nucor not only survived the import crisis,
Wow.
but emerged as one of the most profitable steel companies in America.
That's impressive.
Yeah.
It seems like the key takeaway here is that it's not about ignoring the problems.
Right.
It's about facing them head on
Confront them.
with a balanced perspective of realism and hope.
Exactly.
But how did they actually go about confronting those brutal facts?
Yeah.
Did they have a specific process?
They did, and it goes back to the leadership style
Okay.
and company culture we talked about earlier.
Right.
They weren't afraid to ask tough questions,
Okay.
encourage debate,
Mm-hmm.
and conduct honest postmortems of their failures without assigning blame.
So it was a very open and transparent environment.
Yes, they fostered a culture where people felt safe
Okay.
speaking the truth, even if it was uncomfortable.
Leaders didn't pretend to have all the answers.
Yeah, leaders didn't pretend to have all the answers.
Right.
They led with questions,
Yeah.
fostering a climate of inquiry and dialogue.
It sounds like that kind of open communication would be crucial
It is.
for problem solving and innovation.
Absolutely.
But was that enough to propel these companies to greatness, or is there something more?
Confronting brutal facts and maintaining faith is essential,
Okay.
but they needed a way to channel those insights into action. Okay. And that's where we get to the hedgehog concept.
Okay. The hedgehog concept, it sounds a bit cute for
Yeah.
a business principle.
I know.
What's the story here?
Well, it's not about being cute.
Okay.
It's about clarity.
Right.
The hedgehog concept is about understanding what you can be the best in the world at,
Okay.
what drives your economic engine,
Okay.
and what you are truly passionate about.
Okay.
It's about finding the intersection of those three circles
Right.
and using it as a guiding principle for all your decisions.
So it's not just about being good at something.
Yes.
It's about being the absolute best.
That's a key distinction.
Okay.
It's not about aspiration alone.
Mm-hmm.
It's about understanding your true potential
Right.
for excellence.
Okay.
And it has to align with your economic engine and your core passions.
Right.
It can't just be something you want to be the best at.
Okay.
It has to be something that truly fits.
So you're saying it's about finding that sweet spot where your strengths, your economic drivers, and your passions all align.
That's it.
Can you give me an example of a company that used the hedgehog concept effectively?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Abbott Laboratories,
Okay.
a pharmaceutical company.
Right.
It's a great example.
Okay.
They were facing a major challenge when the patent on their most profitable drug expired
Oh, no.
and the market became flooded with cheaper generics.
Okay.
Their main source of revenue was suddenly in jeopardy.
That sounds like a tough situation to be in.
It was.
So what did they do?
Guided by a level 5 leader
Okay.
and fueled by that never give up attitude
Yeah.
of the Stockdale Paradox,
Mm-hmm.
they embarked on a journey of self-discovery.
Yep.
They asked themselves those tough questions.
Right.
What could they be the best in the world at?
Okay.
What truly drove their economic engine?
Mm-hmm.
And what were they truly passionate about?
So they were taking a hard look at themselves,
Yeah.
trying to figure out their next move.
Yeah, reevaluating everything.
Oh.
And through rigorous analysis
Okay.
and honest self-reflection,
Right.
they realized that their true strength
Okay.
wasn't in pharmaceuticals,
Interesting.
but in creating cost-effective
Okay.
healthcare products.
So they pivoted away from their core business,
They did.
focusing on areas where they could truly excel.
Exactly.
They understood that just being good at pharmaceuticals didn't mean they could be the best.
That's right.
They have the discipline to let go of what was comfortable.
It's hard to do.
Yeah.
And embrace a new path that aligned with their hedgehog concept.
That takes courage. It sounds like they completely redefined the
Yeah,
identity as a company,
they did.
and it paid off.
And it paid off big time.
Yeah.
Abbott Laboratories became a leader in both nutritional products and diagnostics,
Oh,
building a thriving business
wow.
that contributed to their long-term success.
That's a great example of how the hedgehog concept can guide a company
It is.
through a major transition. But how did these companies ensure that the hedgehog concept didn't just become a fancy idea,
Yeah.
but something that actually permeated
Right.
every level of the organization? That's the challenge, isn't it? Taking a big, powerful idea like the hedgehog concept and actually putting it into practice throughout an entire company.
Yeah, it's one thing to have it as a
Right.
a concept on a piece of paper or a whiteboard.
Right.
But it's another thing to actually have it,
Live it.
live it and breathe it
Right.
in the day-to-day of a company.
Yeah, so it's about creating an environment where disciplined people are taking disciplined action, all guided
That's
by
right.
that hedgehog concept.
Yes, and it all starts.
But that sounds really hard,
Yeah.
especially
Yeah.
if you're talking about a large organization.
Yeah.
It is, how do you actually instill that level of discipline across an entire company?
It starts at the top.
Okay.
Leadership, setting the tone,
Right.
leading by example. One of the anecdotes from the book that I think really brings this to life
Okay.
involves Carl Reichert,
Okay.
the CEO of Wells Fargo, during
Yeah.
a very turbulent time for the banking industry.
Right. Banking deregulation. I mean, that was a time of massive change.
Huge.
Uncertainty.
Absolutely.
Sounds like a perfect time to apply.
Yeah.
That's Stockdale Paradox thinking.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
He knew that the industry was in for a major shakeup,
Okay.
and he was determined to make Wells Fargo one of the winners.
So he had that unwavering faith
Yeah.
in the future of the company.
He did, but he also didn't sugarcoat the reality of the
Oh.
situation.
So he saw the need to cut costs
Yeah.
and improve efficiency.
Mhm.
But it sounds like he took a very different approach than many other bank CEOs at the time.
Think about those classic cost-cutting measures, right?
Right.
Often they impact lower-level employees,
Right.
while the executives,
Right. They keep their perks.
keep all their perks and continue to live the high life.
Right.
Reichert did the opposite.
Okay.
He believed in leading by example, starting with himself and his executive team.
Interesting.
He froze executive salaries,
Okay.
shut down the executive dining room,
Wow.
got rid of the corporate jets,
Really?
even banned plants from the executive suite because they were too expensive to water.
He banned plants.
He banned the plants.
That's commitment.
Yeah.
I can see how that would send a strong message to the rest of the company.
Absolutely.
Like, we're all in this together.
Yeah, no one is above sacrifice.
Was it just about symbolism, though, or did this approach to discipline?
It was more than symbolism.
Okay.
It created a culture where everyone felt like they were in it together,
Okay.
that no one was above sacrificing for the good of the company.
So it wasn't about forcing discipline through rules and regulations. It
Uh-huh.
was about attracting disciplined people.
Yeah, attracting the right people
Yeah.
who were self-motivated,
All right.
driven by a shared commitment
To-
to excellence.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So attract the right people.
Yes.
And then create an environment where discipline becomes a natural part of the culture.
That's it.
Okay.
Build the right culture from the start.
Did these good to great companies experience sudden dramatic turnarounds
That's a good question.
once they started implementing these ideas?
Mm-hmm.
Or was it a more gradual process?
That's where we get to one of the most compelling ideas.
Okay.
I think in the book, the concept of the flywheel and the doom loop.
Okay. The flywheel and the doom loop,
Yeah,
good to great transformations, rarely happen overnight.
that's right.
Okay.
They don't result from one grand gesture
Okay.
or revolutionary new product or,
Right.
new CEO.
Some magical solution.
Yeah, some magical solution.
Yeah.
It's about building momentum over time,
Okay.
a gradual accumulation of disciplined actions
Okay.
that lead to a tipping point.
So it's like pushing a giant flywheel.
That's the perfect analogy.
You push and push and push.
The push and push.
And it seems like you're making no progress.
Yeah.
But if you keep at it consistently pushing in the same direction, eventually,
Yeah.
that flywheel starts to spin on its own.
That's the idea.
Okay, so no magic bullets, no overnight successes.
No.
It's about putting in the work consistently over time.
That's it.
Are there companies that got this wrong,
Of course.
that tried to force a quick transformation
Oh, yeah.
and ended up falling short?
That's the doom loop.
Okay, the doom loop.
Yeah, these are companies that jump from one strategy to the next,
Okay.
constantly restructuring, chasing the latest trends
Right.
without ever finding their hedgehog concept
Right.
or building that consistent
Right.
culture of discipline.
So it's about consistency and discipline versus
Yeah.
constantly changing course.
Exactly. Good to great companies
Okay.
had the patience and discipline to stick to their plan,
Okay.
even when it seemed like things weren't moving fast enough. They trusted the process, knowing that consistent effort would eventually lead to a breakthrough.
But didn't they have to adapt?
Yeah,
I mean, the business world is constantly changing.
that's a great point.
How did they balance the need for consistency with the need to evolve and innovate?
Well, that's a fantastic question, and that's really where we get to one of the key,
Okay.
I think, insights in the book.
Okay.
They understood that being successful
Yeah.
over the long term requires balancing preserving your core values
Okay.
with a constant drive for progress.
So preserving the core while stimulating progress.
That's what Collins calls it.
Okay.
Preserving the core, stimulating progress.
So how does that play out in a practical sense?
Well, think about it this way.
Yeah.
Enduring great companies
Mm-hmm.
have a deep understanding of their core values
Right.
and purpose,
Okay.
their fundamental reason for being.
Right.
But they also recognize the need to adapt their strategies and practices.
Yeah. Sure, to stay relevant and competitive.
Exactly.
It makes me think about, those companies that try to be everything to everyone.
Oh, yeah.
And end up losing their way.
Totally. And that's precisely what happens.
Right.
When companies lack clarity
Right.
about their core values or fail to adhere to their hedgehog concept.
They chase every shiny new object.
That's right.
Without considering whether it truly aligns with their strengths and long-term goals.
They get distracted by
the trends.
the latest fad,
Yeah.
And they lose sight of who they are, what makes them truly unique and special.
Well, I think we've given our listener a lot to think about on their own journey from good to great,
Hopefully.
whatever that may look like for them.
I think so.
Any final thoughts before we wrap things up?
Just
Okay.
these principles aren't just for companies.
Okay.
They're for anyone who wants to achieve something truly remarkable.
So it's about finding your purpose, building your flywheel, and embracing the journey with discipline, passion, and unwavering faith.
That's it.
Well said. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into good to great.
My pleasure.
I hope you found it insightful and maybe even a little bit life-changing.
You too.
Until next time, keep pushing that flywheel and remember, good is the enemy of great.